Oh, see the Duster? This is my all-new Plymouth Duster. I just got it.
1971 Roadrunner.
Plymouth is a name that once roared through American driveways, leaving a thrilling mark on the automotive scene. Launched in 1928 as Chrysler's budget-friendly gem, Plymouth quickly became a favorite for its innovative spirit and stylish rides.
If you're accustomed to all the finer things in life, we recommend the 1970s Sport Suburban wagon, Plymouth,
giving us legends like the Barracuda and Roadrunner. But despite its early triumphs and devoted fans,
1970 Plymouth Superbird. These cars have a fascinating history.
This iconic brand quietly vanished from the market in 2001. So, what really happened to Plymouth? Join us as we dive into what really happened to Plymouth. Plymouth History. Plymouth was born not in a shipyard or coastal town, but on July 7, 1928, as a division of the Chrysler Corporation, a brand conceived specifically to penetrate the low-priced automobile market dominated by Ford and Chevrolet. Walter P. Chrysler, the visionary founder of Chrysler Corporation, recognized the need for a budget-friendly brand that didn't compromise on engineering quality.
Chrysler, we put everything we had into this new Dodge car. The more we test it, the more we drive it, the more we love it.
At a time when mass production was transforming American industry, the automotive market was bifurcated. Ford had revolutionized affordability with the Model T.
This is a 1915 Ford Model T. This is the car that set America on wheels.
While General Motors courted aspirational buyers with a tiered brand strategy. Chrysler needed an entry-level marque to remain competitive. Thus, Plymouth emerged as the solution. The name Plymouth was carefully chosen for mass appeal. Chrysler's marketing team named it after the hardy Plymouth binder twine, a product familiar to rural Americans. The name also subtly invoked the historical symbolism of Plymouth Rock and the Pilgrims, projecting a sense of American heritage and dependability. This strategic branding decision was critical to giving the new car a cultural identity accessible to the average American family. Plymouth's first model was launched during the economic boom of the late 1920s, but almost immediately faced the catastrophic crash of 1929 and the subsequent Great Depression. While many brands struggled, Plymouth managed to carve out a foothold in the market.
It is imperative that the Congress bail out Chrysler with federal loan guarantees.
And I don't think I met a single person who, one, didn't know that Chrysler was in trouble.
The 1929 Plymouth Model Q was priced slightly higher than its Ford and Chevrolet counterparts, but justified this with hydraulic brakes, an industry first in the low-priced car segment, and robust engineering. Chrysler positioned the vehicle as the more advanced alternative for a modest premium. This technical superiority, particularly in safety and ride quality, became a hallmark of Plymouth's early reputation. The 1930s witnessed Plymouth becoming a vital asset in Chrysler's brand hierarchy. Despite the economic challenges of the Depression, Plymouth's sales steadily climbed. In 1931, it ranked third in U.S. car sales, a remarkable feat for a brand only 3 years old. Chrysler expanded the brand's distribution network, ensuring Plymouths were available even in rural dealerships where affordability and reliability were paramount. Its strong performance helped Chrysler weather the Depression better than many of its rivals. Notably, the 1933 Plymouth PC Convertible Coupe offered styling and features that felt upscale for the price, appealing to both practical and style-conscious buyers. Plymouth's philosophy was simple: deliver maximum value at minimum cost without skimping on innovation. This made the brand the first entry-level American carmaker to introduce features such as all-steel bodies, floating power engine mounts to reduce vibration, and independent front suspension. It was a brand that brought engineering sophistication within reach of working-class families, enabling smoother, safer rides for everyday drivers. During World War II, Plymouth, like other Detroit automakers, ceased civilian production and turned its factories toward the war effort. While the Plymouth name did not appear on military vehicles, its factories and personnel supported the production of military equipment under Chrysler's umbrella, including contributions to the Dodge WC truck line. Post-war, when civilian car production resumed, demand skyrocketed. Americans, eager to own cars again, returned to familiar brands. Plymouth benefited significantly from this post-war boom. The late 1940s and 1950s were a golden era for Plymouth. Models like the 1949 Special Deluxe and 1957 Belvedere offered bold styling, generous space, and dependable performance. The 1957 Plymouth line, featuring the forward-look styling by designer Virgil Exner, gave the brand a futuristic and daring appeal.
No more need for a costly limousine when low-priced Plymouth gives her the spacious luxury of a truly big car and the graceful beauty of flight sweep styling.
The slogan, "Suddenly It's 1960," exemplified the brand's attempt to leapfrog into modernity. Though Plymouth did not surpass Ford in total U.S. sales for the year, it came unusually close in monthly figures, highlighting its growing popularity and strong market presence. Throughout these formative decades, Plymouth distinguished itself by making automotive innovation available to the masses. It was often the first car of many American households. Unlike luxury brands that catered to exclusivity, Plymouth's ethos was inclusive, yet it resisted being plain.
The girls are working out for the game of the year, waiting on a car that was bringing the gear. Plymouth Duster, 74.
Its cars were reliable, yet forward-thinking, modestly priced, yet technologically ambitious. Plymouth's origins reveal more than just the birth of a car brand. They tell the story of American ingenuity filtered through economic necessity and consumer aspiration. Walter Chrysler didn't just launch a cheaper car, he launched a strategy that merged quality with affordability and proved that mass-market appeal didn't have to mean mediocrity. Having established itself as a trusted name in affordable American automobiles, how did Plymouth evolve into a brand associated with innovation, performance, and mainstream success? Plymouth's rise during the 1930s and 1940s was a testament to Chrysler's vision of building a low-priced car brand that didn't compromise on engineering excellence. Despite its 1928 debut in a market dominated by Ford and Chevrolet, Plymouth rapidly climbed the ranks due to its advanced features and aggressive pricing. At a time when most economy cars offered bare-bones functionality, Plymouth stood out by offering hydraulic brakes, rubber engine mounts, and all-steel bodies, features that were uncommon, even among some more expensive rivals. The economic collapse of 1929 didn't destroy Plymouth. It tested and ultimately proved the brand's resilience. While Ford continued with its minimalist Model A, Plymouth introduced the Model U in 1930, equipped with innovations like roll-down windows and adjustable seats. These touches of comfort and modernity, paired with solid engineering, helped Plymouth rise to third place in national auto sales by 1931, a rapid ascent in a time when dozens of car brands were struggling or disappearing. By 1934, Plymouth's U.S. market share had jumped from 2% in 1929 to over 12%. A key factor in this growth was Chrysler's decision to make Plymouth available at all Chrysler dealerships, unlike General Motors, which divided its brands among distinct sales tiers. This strategy meant consumers in small towns had easy access to Plymouth vehicles. The brand's visibility and accessibility also helped it win contracts for government fleet use during New Deal public works programs, reinforcing its image as a reliable, hardworking vehicle. During the 1940s, Plymouth further solidified its position in the American automotive landscape. Even as World War II halted civilian production from 1942 to 1945, Plymouth's pre-war reputation endured. Under the Chrysler umbrella, its factories contributed to wartime manufacturing, though not always under the Plymouth name, producing staff cars and utility vehicles for the military. When civilian production resumed, the 1946 Plymouth Special Deluxe was met with strong demand.
And many car designers have forgotten the first rule of speed. That rule is more power, less weight. The great American muscle cars of the 60s and 70s.
It offered familiar styling updated with refinements, satisfying Americans eager to return to normal life. By 1950, Plymouth was producing over 700,000 cars annually and consistently held third place in U.S. auto sales. Plymouth's golden era stretched from the post-war years into the early 1970s, as the brand evolved from simply dependable to culturally significant. A turning point came in the 1960s when Plymouth embraced performance, youth culture, and bold styling. In April 1964, it launched the Barracuda, predating Ford's Mustang by 2 weeks. While the Mustang went on to define the pony car segment with unprecedented success, the Barracuda deserves credit as an early innovator.
1969 Barracuda. You guys know how rare this baby is, a 440 and a 69 Barracuda. Man, is this thing cool.
Its fastback silhouette, wraparound rear glass, and compact design signaled Plymouth's intent to break from conservative styling. In 1968, Plymouth took a radical approach with the Roadrunner, introducing a no-frills muscle car aimed squarely at budget-conscious speed enthusiasts. It featured a 383 cubic inch V8 engine, stripped-down features, and a price under $3,000. The car's playful beep-beep horn, licensed from Warner Brothers, added a unique pop culture twist to its aggressive persona. The Roadrunner was a commercial success and helped redefine the muscle car as something attainable, not just aspirational. The 1970 Plymouth Superbird further emphasized the brand's performance ambitions. Built to dominate NASCAR, it featured an extended aerodynamic nose and a towering rear wing, making it instantly recognizable. Though fewer than 2,000 were sold to the public, many buyers balked at the wild styling. The Superbird's influence on motorsports was undeniable. Racing legend Richard Petty returned to Plymouth to drive it, helping solidify the brand's connection to American racing culture. Throughout the 1960s and early 1970s, Plymouth offered a wide-ranging lineup that balanced affordability, performance, and style. The GTX, Satellite, and Duster addressed different buyer needs, from muscle enthusiasts to economy-minded commuters.
This is the 1992 Plymouth Duster. Like the first Duster, it uses the combination of a rather mundane platform,
while the Fury catered to growing suburban families. By 1973, Plymouth reached its commercial peak, selling over 973,000 vehicles and maintaining its spot as the third best-selling brand in the United States. What made Plymouth a household name wasn't just sales volume, it was cultural relevance. In each decade, the brand aligned itself with the prevailing mood, serving returning veterans in the 1940s, suburban boomers in the 1950s, rebellious youth in the 1960s, and thrill-seeking drivers in the 1970s. Plymouth appeared everywhere, from driveways and drag strips to television screens. Through savvy marketing, humor, racing prestige, and memorable models, the brand etched itself into the American consciousness. As Plymouth captured the imagination of American drivers with iconic models, how did it leverage motorsports and high-performance culture to cement its place in automotive history? Plymouth's legacy in American automotive history is inseparable from its deep involvement in motorsports and performance engineering, especially during the 1960s and early 1970s. Although originally conceived as a budget-friendly brand under Chrysler, Plymouth transformed into a serious player in the high-performance arena, particularly in NASCAR and NHRA drag racing. This transformation was deliberate, aligning the brand with power, speed, and youth culture to boost sales and broaden appeal. Plymouth's foray into racing wasn't accidental, it was strategic. Chrysler recognized that racing wins translated directly to showroom interest, especially during the muscle car boom. In NASCAR, Plymouth began to make waves in the early 1960s, culminating in a dominant partnership with driver Richard Petty. Petty, nicknamed the King, became synonymous with Plymouth after driving a Plymouth Belvedere to win the 1964 Daytona 500.
The crowd cheers as Richard Petty and his number 43 Plymouth takes the checkered flag going away.
That same year, Plymouth became the first manufacturer to use the 426 Hemi V8 engine in NASCAR, an engine that would go on to achieve legendary status. The 426 Hemi, dubbed the Elephant engine for its sheer size and power, was the heart of Plymouth's racing credentials. With over 425 horsepower in street form and far more in race trim, it was engineered specifically to dominate NASCAR's superspeedways.
Well, the first time the Hemi ran as a NASCAR engine, number one run that it made more horsepower than the wedge engine had ever run.
Plymouth's combination of aerodynamic bodies and this powerhouse engine made it a fearsome competitor. The 1960 '67 season saw Plymouth secure multiple wins, reinforcing its growing presence on the track. However, 1970 marked Plymouth's most audacious move in NASCAR, the introduction of the Superbird. Developed as a homologation special to qualify for NASCAR competition, the Superbird featured a wind tunnel-tested aerodynamic nose cone and a massive rear wing designed for high-speed stability. Based on the Roadrunner platform, the Superbird was engineered for one purpose: winning. Richard Petty, who had briefly parted ways with Plymouth amid disagreements over racing strategy, returned to the brand to pilot the Superbird. That year, Petty secured 8 NASCAR victories, which validated the car's radical design.
Yeah, this is the car he's most known by, being the wing car, and the Superbird was built for Richard Petty. He went Ford for 1 year, and then it came back to the Superbird.
Although the Superbird faced resistance in the showroom due to its unconventional looks, it remains one of the most iconic cars in NASCAR history. Plymouth also left a substantial mark in NHRA drag racing. The brand's lightweight, powerful models like the Belvedere and Barracuda became staples at the Strip. In the mid-1960s, Plymouth launched factory-sponsored drag racing efforts through the Ramchargers team and the development of A990 lightweight race cars. These vehicles, equipped with aluminum body panels, minimal interiors, and high-compression Hemi engines, were built strictly for competitive use. The altered wheelbase, funny cars of the era, many based on Plymouths, were a precursor to modern drag racing classes. In 1968, Plymouth introduced the Roadrunner, a budget muscle car that quickly gained fame both on and off the track.
A lot of the market for those cars was the high school teenagers, and they didn't need all the bells and whistles and all the power seats and all that stuff. They wanted the speed and they wanted the low price tag, and that's what the Roadrunner delivered.
Designed for blue-collar enthusiasts who wanted performance without luxury extras, it featured powerful engine options, including the 426 Hemi and a stripped-down Ethos. The Roadrunner was not only a commercial success but also a consistent performer in drag racing events. Its popularity bolstered Plymouth's reputation among younger buyers, further embedding the brand into America's muscle car subculture.
Roadrunner in '68 came out with a base price under $3,000, and that made it affordable to a high school senior with a strong work ethic. It's true.
The GTX, often referred to as the gentleman's muscle car, offered a more refined yet potent alternative. With standard 440 cubic inch V8 engines and available Hemis, the GTX delivered premium performance in a slightly more upscale package. It competed directly with upper-tier muscle cars like the Pontiac GTO and Chevrolet Chevelle SS, and while it didn't achieve the same sales figures, it contributed to Plymouth's broader image as a builder of serious performance machinery. However, this golden age was not to last. By the mid-1970s, rising insurance premiums, tightening emissions regulations, and the 1973 oil crisis severely curtailed the market for high-performance vehicles. Federal mandates for catalytic converters, lower compression ratios, and unleaded fuel all took a toll on engine output. Plymouth, like other manufacturers, was forced to detune its powertrains and refocus its lineup. The Hemi was phased out from the high-performance models after 1971.
The legendary Hemi V8, or maybe it's the killer styling. Whatever the reason, the 1971 Hemi Cuda convertible is the big fish.
And models like the Roadrunner were gradually diluted into trim packages rather than performance beasts. As Plymouth's racing edge dulled, so did its image. The Superbird was discontinued after just one model year, as NASCAR banned aero cars from competition. Factory support for motorsports dwindled, and the brand retreated into building economy cars, which, while practical, lacked the passion of its earlier offerings. By the 1980s, Plymouth was no longer associated with performance, and by the 1990s, it had become a shadow of its former self. After reaching the peak of performance and public acclaim, what challenges emerged that began to undermine Plymouth's momentum in a rapidly changing industry? By the late 1970s, Plymouth found itself navigating a treacherous automotive landscape shaped by economic instability, regulatory pressure, and rapidly shifting consumer preferences. Once a top-tier brand under Chrysler's umbrella, Plymouth began losing ground due to a combination of external market changes and internal mismanagement, ultimately leading to its decline and discontinuation. One of the major challenges Plymouth faced was the drastic change in consumer behavior during the 1970s oil crises. The 1973 Arab oil embargo and the subsequent 1979 Iranian Revolution led to skyrocketing fuel prices and an increased demand for smaller, fuel-efficient vehicles.
Comfort. In a big car, you expect it. But now you can find it in a new kind of small American car.
Plymouth, traditionally known for mid-sized and large muscle cars, struggled to pivot quickly. Japanese automakers like Toyota, Honda, and Datsun, now Nissan, capitalized on this shift, offering affordable, reliable, and fuel-efficient alternatives that undercut Plymouth's domestic offerings in both quality and economy. Plymouth attempted to compete by rebadging Chrysler's compact platforms, but these efforts often lacked the innovation and refinement of their Japanese counterparts. The Horizon, for example, a badge-engineered version of the Dodge Omni, was Plymouth's first attempt at a front-wheel drive compact hatchback in the late 1970s. While it achieved modest commercial success and contributed to Plymouth's presence in the compact car market, it did little to establish a distinct identity for the brand in the long term. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, the brand increasingly became a dumping ground for Chrysler's least differentiated products. Models such as the Reliant, Sundance, and Breeze were competent but uninspiring, suffering from lackluster design and shared platforms that blurred brand lines between Plymouth, Dodge, and Chrysler. Consumers no longer saw a compelling reason to choose a Plymouth over its sister brands, leading to an erosion of brand loyalty and identity. At the corporate level, Chrysler's internal dynamics played a pivotal role in undermining Plymouth's strategic direction. As Chrysler underwent financial difficulties in the late 1970s and early 1980s, it was forced to prioritize resources, and Plymouth was often deprioritized in favor of Dodge and the more upscale Chrysler marque. When Lee Iacocca took over Chrysler in 1979 and led the company through a historic federal bailout,
first of all, let's get the facts straight. There are two boutique cars over there that are bought for snob appeal, and they're called two German cars, Mercedes and BMW. But in total, you leave those two out.
much of the recovery plan focused on minivans and K-platform sedans. While Plymouth did benefit from the introduction of the Voyager minivan in 1984, which was initially well received, the lack of exclusive models continued to weaken its brand differentiation. Plymouth's attempts to reignite consumer interest through innovation were bold, but often too little, too late. The most notable example was the Plymouth Prowler, introduced in 1997. Styled as a retro-modern hot rod, the Prowler was intended to showcase Chrysler's engineering capabilities and reinvigorate Plymouth's image. Despite its striking design, the Prowler was hampered by a lack of performance.
I always thought it was really cool and really crazy looking, and I've always wanted to drive one, and now I'm going to.
Its V6 engine didn't live up to its aggressive appearance and a high price tag that alienated budget-minded Plymouth customers. Though it attracted attention, it failed to generate sufficient volume or shift perceptions of the brand's overall lineup. Meanwhile, internal confusion about Plymouth's market position worsened. It was no longer Chrysler's budget brand, a role Dodge increasingly assumed, nor a performance brand, a legacy long abandoned, nor a premium brand, clearly reserved for Chrysler vehicles. This identity crisis made it nearly impossible to craft targeted marketing or product strategies that resonated with buyers. Efforts to reposition Plymouth as a youth brand in the 1990s faltered, as the cars lacked the style, performance, and innovation needed to appeal to younger audiences. The final blow came as Chrysler prepared for its merger with Daimler-Benz in 1998. The newly formed Daimler-Chrysler assessed each brand's value and long-term viability. Plymouth, with declining sales and no unique models in the pipeline, was deemed redundant. Production of Plymouth models ceased in 2001, and the brand was officially discontinued, ending nearly 73 years of automotive history. With its identity blurred and market share dwindling, how did Plymouth's final years unfold? And what legacy did it leave behind after its quiet disappearance from the automotive landscape? The end of Plymouth in 2001 marked the quiet demise of a once proud American automotive brand that had played a pivotal role in democratizing car ownership. Chrysler's decision to discontinue Plymouth was not abrupt, but the culmination of years of dwindling identity, declining sales, and shifting corporate priorities. By the mid-1990s, Plymouth's role within Chrysler's brand hierarchy had become unclear. It was no longer sharply distinct from Dodge, which had taken on much of the entry-level market Plymouth once dominated. Chrysler, repositioned as a near-luxury marque, had increasingly absorbed the more upscale models. As a result, Plymouth found itself trapped in an awkward middle ground, lacking exclusive products, identity, or marketing focus. Chrysler attempted a minor brand revival in the late 1990s, targeting a younger demographic with quirky design and affordable pricing. This initiative included models like the Plymouth Neon, Breeze, and Voyager. While the Neon initially enjoyed success due to its spunky personality and value-for-money proposition, its appeal quickly faded as competitors offered more refined alternatives. The Breeze, a badge-engineered version of the Chrysler Cirrus and Dodge Stratus, failed to establish a compelling reason for buyers to choose it over its siblings. The Voyager minivan, once a groundbreaking product, was overshadowed by the success of the Dodge Caravan. In 1997, Plymouth unveiled its boldest effort in years, the Prowler. With radical, hot rod-inspired styling, the Prowler made a striking design statement that showcased Chrysler's creative engineering. However, under its aggressive facade lay a modest 3.5-liter V6 engine borrowed from Chrysler's mainstream sedans, which underwhelmed performance enthusiasts expecting V8 muscle. Though visually arresting, the Prowler remained a niche product, never intended to revive Plymouth's mass-market appeal. Ironically, it became one of the brand's last distinctive vehicles. The final blow came in 1998 when Chrysler merged with German automaker Daimler-Benz, forming Daimler-Chrysler. The new leadership conducted a strategic review of all Chrysler brands. With Plymouth offering no unique products and contributing minimally to the company's profits, Daimler-Chrysler decided to phase it out. In 1999, the company announced it would discontinue the brand after the 2001 model year. The last Plymouth sold were modest vehicles, the Neon, the Breeze, and the Voyager. There was no farewell campaign, no celebratory final edition, just a quiet fade from showrooms. The final Plymouth, a neon, rolled off the assembly line in Belvidere, Illinois on June 28, 2001. It was a humble end for a brand that had once rivaled Ford and Chevrolet in sales and prestige. Despite its subdued departure, Plymouth's legacy remains significant. In the 1930s and 1940s, it was a leader in making automotive innovations like hydraulic brakes and independent front suspension more accessible to everyday drivers. Today, Plymouth is remembered not for its quiet final years, but for its contributions to accessible performance, engineering innovation, and classic American style. Its muscle cars remain highly collectible, its name fondly recalled by enthusiasts, and its influence visible in the design philosophy of Chrysler and Dodge vehicles that followed. Though the badge is gone, Plymouth's imprint on automotive history endures.